Hey everyone, welcome to this video. If you see my videos before, usually I have my camera on and the audio sounds a little bit better. I've moved my PC to a different room. I've got to get some soundproofing up and get some lighting up and everything to help with that. So you'll bear with the audio. I'll get through this walkthrough and eventually I will get things taken care of. So today we're going to be doing a walkthrough for the Soupedecode01. I believe is how it's fully pronounced. This is actually a easy box, but it can be a little difficult if you've never worked with Active Directory before, and there's a couple parts where it did take me a little bit because it's been a while. Make sure to read the description down below. The author actually lays out the 4 steps you need to utilize in order to get on the box and get your 2 flags. So with that, let's turn to the terminal. Now, I've gone ahead and ran a few things here, and I'll go over them in just a second here. So first, I exported the target box's IP address to the variable target. That's something I just like to do so I don't have to keep typing it over and over again. So I've ran our first nmap here using the -pn switch. That tells it to not do a ping to see if the host is up. -n means we want to do a stealth scan. -p- means we're doing all the ports. And there's a $target, so it automatically puts the server's IP address in there. I did a -v just so you can see some output here. And it took about 10 minutes to complete, but it did go through. And just to let you know, I did try to do a normal scan first, which normally wouldn't include this N or this first. Normally I do the -pn-f, but it did not return anything and it wasn't able to see the target. So that's why I went with the stealth scan here. And it worked out just fine. As you can see, we've got a bunch of ports open here. So let's run our second nmap scan, which will be the -pn, -svc. All this is combining the SV and the SC options into one. You can do that, it's kind of helpful. -n, because we still want to run this as a stealth scan. And then we do a -p, list out all of our ports here. And then there's our server's IP address. And it goes through, finds some version information for some things. And we get a little bit of output down here about Samba. So again, if you read the description, you know that we're going to be having to do some stuff with Kerberos. So as you can see right here, we do have a port open for that. I talked about Samba. If you look, we got port 445, which normally shows up as this. So now with those scans out of the way, let's get into it. So I will have a link down below to this article. If you've never come across it before and you're not too familiar with Samba enumeration, it's a great little guide written a few years ago. But it goes over what Samba is, some different things about it, and enumeration, trying to find host names, to share null sessions, which can be useful. More importantly for us here in this first step is users. As you can see, I had to highlight here, Metasploit has this. Now Mpacket also has a tool, look up SID. I'm more familiar with the Metasploit one. But if you like the Mpacket suite, which we will be utilizing in this as well, a few options in there, you can go with it. From my understanding, it works pretty much the same. So back in our terminal, let's get Metasploit up. We'll do that with MSF console. Now we're just going to type in search, SMB, look up SID. All right, you see it even highlights it for us, so you want to use number 2. Clear this out. Let me go ahead and show you what we're going to be setting here. Of course, as always, we want to set the R host. We'll set that to our server's IP address. Now down here, we have an SMB user. Let's go ahead and set that to guest. That's just a good habit to get into, because more often than not, that works for your first run. You usually find some things. If not, then you can play around with that setting to see if you can find anything. Now, the other 2 things we're going to change is this up here, the max RID and the mini RID. So this is basically your start and stop points for your RIDs that you want to look for. We're going to set the mini to 1,000, or we're going to set the max to 1,500. And I'll show you exactly why we're going to do that here in just a minute, because we're going to run this, and I'll be back when it completes. Okay, we're back, it's completed, and this is why I've limited to 500. You can actually do 100 at a time if you want to. Just know the next few steps you'll probably have to do them multiple times. So you can see it prints out every single ID and what it found with it. So what I want to do is come up here and actually let's skip these first 3 here. Do that, and we want to copy all of the stuff that it found. Okay, we can exit out of this, and we just want to open up a file. I'm going to call it userlist.txt. And we want to paste all that stuff in, Control X, Y, and save. Okay, so this is a quick little Python script I made to go through and pull from that list that we just made. Let me add that .txt in there. And then it will loop through, and basically what it's going to do is take each row of the user, it's going to split it on the spaces, and then it's going to go through and find things that actually have characters in it so they're not empty, and it'll append it to this temporary array here, or temporary list, my bad, not an array, that's a list. And then we're going to attempt to take the second variable, which will be the username that we want, and append it into our user list. And then once it goes through all of that, we're going to open up a new file and we're going to dump all those users in there, one line each. That's why I had to put the new line here. So we actually have a users.txt that we can actually use and work with. Again, if you need to, you can pause the video so you can type this up. And if you're curious about this, it's just the way that Nano displays this. As you can see there, that is the exclamation equal for does not equal. Okay, simply to do it, I'm just going to run Python 3 and the name of the file. In this case is extract.py. And if we list, we can see we have a users list here. And we can just use the head command here to see the first bit of it. So you can see we've got a proper list of users that we can use. All right, so what are we going to do with that list? Well, basically, we have a list of users, but we don't have a password list. So the first thing is basically use the username for the password. So we're basically trying to see if we can exploit poor password usage. And for this, we're going to use the netexec tool. Now, if you do not have this tool, it should already be installed. But if you don't, or you want to learn more about it, I'll leave a link to the GitHub repo for it here. It's a really neat little tool. It can do quite a bit. So we're going to tell it that we want to target an SMB. We give it the IP address there, dash lowercase u, users.txt, dash lowercase p, user file again. And we want to tell it no brute force, and that's supposed to be a double dash. Let me fix that, because remember, this is a Windows machine, right? So we want to limit our brute forcing because it could lock the account out, and that's what we don't want. We'd have to reset the box. So we're going to take that output and run it through grep using the -v to look for any lines that have failure and not print those out. So we basically want every line it outputs except for where it says the word failure, because remember, we've got 500 users we're going through. We don't need to see all of them. So we'll run this and I'll be back once it's done. Alrighty, we are back and we have success. As you can see, it went through, created some stuff it needed to do, and then it printed out 2 lines with some very important information on it. First off, we can see the target machine showing us DC01, that's domain controller 1, which is what we expect to see if we're working with Windows servers. You can see right here, there's the name of the machine. Now here is the important part from this line, domain. You see it says Soupedecode01. That's going to be super important when we start working with these users. And on the second line here, we do have a hit. And so that this whole thing right here is actually going to be very important. This is actually the entire quote unquote, this part right here is very important. That's the entire quote unquote username that we're going to be using to go forward with this account to try to exploit it. Alrighty, so let's see what we can do with the Samba shares, and for that we use one of my favorite tools. Okay, so here we are, our Samba client command. We're doing -l because first we want to list, so we can take a look at the files and what permissions we have so we can figure out what we can connect to, and do double dash and then our server's IP address. And for the user, make sure to use a capital U on this, and then there's a username for what we found from the last command. We hit enter. It's going to ask us for a password. We do have that. So out of all of this, we see we've got some stuff here, the backup and the users. Not going to worry about the $sign ones because usually that doesn't work out too well trying to connect to those. It's net login sysvol, or log on server share, so I'm not going to worry about them right now. That may be useful later. So we got users and backup, so I'm more curious about this user folder first. Okay, for that, we'll just use SMB client again. This time, give it the IP address /users folder, or username. Then we'll put in our password. All right, looks like we have a connection. Let's take a look. And sure enough, we do. There's the user we currently are. So let's go in there. Let me actually change directories. Take a look around. Basically about what we expect to see for a standard Windows user. So if you're not too familiar with Windows boxes, they will usually put the flags on the desktop folder. So if we go in there and look, yep, right there we go. We got the user.txt. Now I'm going to block out the flag, but I'm going to show you because again, this may be something most of you are not familiar with. When you are connected with SMB and you're wanting to see the outprint of the file, you've got 2 options. You can either use the git command to download the file, or you can type more in the name of the file, and it does give it to you down here at the bottom. Now, how do you get out of this? I'm going to show on screen. You're going to press the colon and the Q, and it takes you right back to your prompt. So if you're familiar with Vim or NeoVim, how you exit out of it, that's exactly how you exit out of this. Alrighty, I went ahead and closed that connection. Feel free, if you're new and haven't had much experience with the boxes, to throw some tools on there to play around, see if you can find another way to pivot, get escalation, or to find other things on there. That's one great thing about these boxes, is it's not just for you to come get the flags and move on. Use them as a place you can get into, mess with, play around with, and learn. And it's okay to break because you can always terminate them and restart it back up. Alright, so here's our next step. We're going to be using the mpacket-get-user SPNS. Now, this is one of the first problems I ran across because I had a VPN issue with getting connected to the box, so I ended up having to use the attack box. This was not installed on the attack box, but I used the find command and I did find this. So if you're on the attack box, search for this. It isn't in there. They do have a folder that has some scripts in it, and this and one of the other ones that we are going to be using are in there. So either way, now on the attack box, you'll have to navigate to that folder so you can use this, or you can copy it over to where you're working. Either way, you'll enter the command there, and we'll add that soupedecode.local/user and its password. Then we use the -dc-ip, give it the target of our server, use the -request. Now basically this is going to go through and try to find types of users that it can get recognition for. The machine recognizes and says, yeah, it's there, or it could possibly be valid, basically is what we're doing. Alrighty, so it's back. It runs relatively quick. Now we did get some names here. We got file, firewall, backup, web, and monitoring. And then down here we've got hashes. Now if you look, it starts with the KRB5, and right here we can see the user that goes with. So what we're going to want to do is create a new file, and we're going to put the name in, use a colon to separate, and then I'll take all of this, copy it, and add it to that user. We're going to make a hash file that we're going to use with John the Ripper to find a login that we can use. Let me get that file made real quick. I'll be back and show you. Alrighty, so I got the file made. I called it hashes.txt, and as you see here, monitoring _svc colon, and then that hash, and I've done that for each of the 5, so these are each just one line. There is a small note that I noticed in one of the Discord channels and that I ran into when I was doing it with the attack box, but I didn't run into it on here. And that is a time issue. So the previous command we ran where we got all those hashes, if you get an odd response back saying something about a clock being off sync or something like that, what you'll want to do is run this first line, this echo, with the full IP address of your server, not just the word target, but the actual IP. And you want the soupedecode.local DC1 soupedcode, and we're going to cat that in, or echo that into the etc host file. So you have to make sure you're root, do this sudo if you need to. And then once you've done that, you'll want to run the SNTP. You may have to install it on your box if it's not already installed. And that's simple network time protocol. Or use the -ss option, Soupedecode local, and that will sync us up with the Active Directory server time clock. So we'll be good to go. So that last command where we got the hashes, you should be able to run it and actually get them. I misread my notes. We are using the John for this. So we'll go John hashes.txt, and we'll do word equals user share word list, and we're going with the rocku.txt. Now let's run John on that and see what we get back. Alrighty, so we did get a password for the account file _svc. Okay, so with that, now we're going to go back to the tool netexec, and we're going to tell target SMB again with the server's IP address. We want this time to use the user file _svc. We'll give them the password, and then we're going to -- shares. We want to list out the shares and what read permissions it has. Alrighty, so let's come back. As you can see here, it says we should be able to read and access the backup file. So let's see if we can connect to it. So just like before, we'll use SMB client. This time we'll tell it to connect to the backup file on the share, and we'll give it our new user of the soupedecode.local files service. It just now clicked on me that soupedecode. For some reason, the EDE in the middle kept throwing me off. The name of the challenge is soupedecode. Now it makes sense. Anyways, we'll hit enter, give it our password, and looks like we're connected. Let's see what we have. Backup extract.txt. And it looks like it's a little bit of a decent file, 892. So let's go ahead and use that git command to pull it to our machine. All right, looks like it's successfully pulled over, so we'll exit. Alright, so it looks like we have yet another set of hashes. We got name, looks like a UID number. Can't remember what it's called on Windows, but basically the user ID number. And then a hash here. So we have two commands we want to run this file to separate that username out in the hash so we can use it as a username and a password file. So the first one, we want to get a list of users. So what we're going to use is cat the file. We'll use the cut command to separate it on a colon, and then we're going to take that first set of users before the colon and make a file out of that. You can see we've got a list of accounts here that do end in the $sign. Okay, and for the hashes that we're going to pass as passwords, we'll use the cat command for the file again, use the cut D again, and do an offset with 4 going forward. And awk, we're going to add this string in front, do a colon, and then that hash that we'll get from this command, we will place it afterwards and then put it into a file called backuphashes.txt. Now, the exact reason why you need this, I can't remember, and I did not have the article bookmark that I read on it, but if I find it again, I will add it to the description below. But that's 32 zeros, and basically it's a Windows thing. It has to be 32 zeros to work. So we'll run this, and then just to show you, so there's the zeros added, the colon, and the importance parts of this. 4 here just offsets that ID number that we saw. And yes, it will go through and add the user as well, but don't worry about that. Alrighty, once again, we're going back to the net exec command, SMB as well, our IP target. This time we're going to set the users to that backup user text file we just made, and the capital H, since we're passing a hash to the backup hash text file we made again. No brute force. Remember, we don't want to lock out an account. So let's hit enter and see what we get. Alrighty, so it looks like the combo with the file server user did work. Alright, so here is one of the other snags I came across on this box. I blinked at this point. I knew I needed to hash that full username, the soupedecode.local/file server. I completely blanked on what I was supposed to do with it though to make it a hash. I looked around for a bit, couldn't find anything because I wasn't quite sure how to search for it. If any of you might find a website that talks about it, an article down below, leave a link in the comments. It would be greatly appreciated, not only by me, but others come across this channel as well, because I do try my best to find things online and link them so you can go read and learn more. I'll be honest, I got this just out of pure dumb luck. I came over here to cyberchef.io, knew I needed to hash this thing, so I just threw it in here, soupedecode.local/file server with a $sign. And I started going through hashes, and I came across the SHA ones, and did SHA-1, left it on 80, tried this one, come back over here, and this is the command that we get when we put everything together. We're going to use the mpacket-ps-exec. Again, if you're on the attack box, just search for the ps-exec, it is on there, and we're going to tell it our user. Since we got the $sign and everything, we'll put it in quotes, file server $sign at target, which, before I forget, let me put that $sign so it actually puts the IP address in there, and then dash hashes, so we're going to pass the hash. There's our username we got from CyberChef, and that is the password hash that we got in the backup hash file. We just hit enter, ps execute will run through its thing, and as you see, we have a Windows prompt. Now if we go over to the user directory, and remember we're on Windows, so we have to use the command directory. You can see that we are indeed inside, and we want to go to this one. Goes to its desktop, and then right there, you see we have the root, and to actually read it, you just want to use command type, followed by the file name, and that'll get you the flag. Alrighty, so that concludes the walkthrough. Again, it was a nice box. It's been a while since I've done a Windows Active Directory one, so it challenged me a bit to kind of remember things and go dig through some notes. And again, if you find an article that better explains any of the reasons for some of the steps, like 32 zeros and stuff like that, link them down in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it, and if I find them helpful, I will definitely pin it so that way others have an easier time finding it. So with that being said, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy my content, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.